Hi everyone!
Hi.
Analisa and Milagros are back with I guess it would be our 7th video, talking today about our adoption journey, just as we have been in our past videos. But today specifically, we're asking an interesting question, kind of a tough question, and actually it's one that I've been asked before by other people that were not adopted. But it is, would you have preferred to have been adopted or not? And this is actually a question that Milagros came up with, so maybe you can just start it off.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought to have, and it's something that I think I never really, I think in the back of my mind, I've always asked myself what it would have been like if I hadn't been adopted. But now since I've made the journey, I've done my whole adoption journey, I feel, I can now ask the question, well, what do I think about it all, and knowing my family, how do I feel about it, being adopted? And how has it worked out, kind of thing. It's a hard question. I think it's not really black and white, but there's some instances where I do feel it's black and white. And everyone's got a different beginning, but my beginning was that I was just left in the hospital really very, very seriously ill. And the question is there is no way that I would have survived if I hadn't been adopted. So that's the first thing. I wouldn't be here alive today if I wasn't adopted.
Yeah.
So this is the question I always say, well, I wouldn't be here to be discussing this if I wasn't adopted. So this is such a big thing, though.
Yeah. I think I've been asked it like I said, by people that were not adopted.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think generally people suspect or expect, or whatever you want to call it, they have thoughts about that when you're adopted, you're going from a bad place to a better place. Like for example, being really sick in a hospital to like having a life and having a family with people, not alone. That's generally from a bad situation to a good situation. And I think I've kind of just like learned through my studies and, through myself and my own experiences, like you said. You've gone back, you've seen your birth country, I've been back to see Peru as well. I've, had the fortune to find certain members of my birth family that I wanted to find. It's kind of like you said, recreating like what could have been. Because I think that I was also thinking about, yeah, what would have been like if I just grew up in Peru in general, just another person, living over there, not having this type of story, this type of experience. And that's part of the reason that I went, searching and looking and traveling. And I think it was tough to kind of be like, did I come from like a bad place? Because in a sense, it's like it's kind of hurtful, to think like, oh well, my history's bad, or like my beginnings are bad, and therefore like this is the right way, like this is what's better. Of course, I can't deny that. I think without a doubt, I've had definitely different opportunities here. Maybe I would have had. I don't know if I want to qualify them as like better or like I don't know. I don't know. But I think I've definitely had maybe increased opportunities and more diverse opportunities here, living my life in the United States with my mom, having been adopted into a country too that there's just some more opportunities. So I think that's been really nice. I'm happy with where I'm at. Through my travels, I've learned to see my beginnings, my birth country, my birth culture, my birth family. Like, it's not all bad, It's not, I didn't go from like a bad thing to a better thing. I just came from one place and like went to another. Like, I remember one of my friends, like in one of his videos, he said that I did lose like my culture, but it's not like it was like replaced with something like better. It was just changed to something that's equally as nice. It's just very different. So I think that's kind of been my journey somewhat with it, is that like I didn't want to think about it as a bad thing.
When you say bad, you mean that your family was bad, or just the circumstances were bad, or just everything was
I think
bad?
in general, yeah, just that your circumstances are bad, the family, the people are bad, your country's bad, it's not doing well, it's unorganized, and some of those things are true, I guess. For me, it's hard to stomach just thinking like, oh well, it's like it's all bad, and this is all better, because I don't think that's true. I think there's a lot of things that are wrong in the country that I live with. Every family has their own personal obstacles and things like that. Being told that you're lucky as an adoptee, and you that's like kind of a lot of pressure, I don't know if this happens with you, but sometimes I think more about living in my birth country. I have days or, just moments in my life where, yeah, I wish I was there, or I wish I was, with certain people there or doing different things over there. And then sometimes, I'm really thankful for where I'm at right now, and I just feel good about my present, and I'm kind of like at peace with things, the things that are unsettled, the things that aren't answered, the pain, missing people, and all of that. I feel a little bit more calm about it. But like I said, I have those different moments. I don't know. Do you ever feel like that?
Yeah, I think it's the way we process it all, and it's the length of time we've had to process it all. Because I realise that when you're in Peru, you can do so much thinking there, but when you come back to London, you don't really have much time to process it all.
Yeah.
And so obviously there are days where you wish you could have more time to reflect on the things that you need to reflect on as being adoptees. I have days where I wish I could be in Peru and be with other Peruvians, because I've not really had that, but in small snippets. And I realise out of all my adoption experiences, and the pros and cons and I don't know what, I think one of the things that I think really had an impact on me, and that would be the fact that I don't really know any Peruvians here.
Yeah.
Or Peruvians that can really understand me, or Peruvians that can relate to me. So this is a hard aspect to deal with, because I'm used to it now, but obviously there's sometimes where you wish that you could just sit down with a Peruvian friend and kind of just talk about Peruvian matters. You know what I mean? Without and them understanding you.
Yeah.
So I think that would have been nice. And then obviously the only time I can do that is if I go to Peru.
Right.
And I'm surrounded by Peruvians. And I think this is the biggest, if I say something that I feel like there's something that I feel I like to go back. One of the reasons I like to go back is that I like to be surrounded by Peruvians who, in the beginning, it was because they just looked like me. Now it's more to the fact that I want to know more about their lives and their histories and what it's like to have lived in Peru.
Yeah.
So what would it have been like to have lived in Peru through them,
Right.
sort of thing. Because I'm not going to ever experience that, because the years have gone, you can never really repeat those years.
Yeah.
But I'd like to know what their lives were like growing up, especially for people who are the same age as me. What were the struggles, And then sometimes you can't get that from your family, from at least my birth family, and so I have to get that in different ways. And so it's establishing a link with other Peruvians, and it kind of helps me process the whole. I think that one of the aspect of issues that we have of not being brought up with our own culture, I think. But everyone has their own history, and as I reflect more about my own history, I realise that it's a complex history. My history is, because it really is complex. Because perhaps it wouldn't be so complex if my mum was still alive today, and I could have actually asked her, did you actually put me up for adoption, or didn't you actually put me up for adoption? Because no one can actually tell me if I actually was put up for adoption, or was it just a matter of circumstances.
Right.
There's no paper to tell me that my mum actually knew I was adopted. There's no single paper, and I've got loads of papers. So this is something I kind of come around to the fact that actually I had no idea really what happened. And I think it's on the one hand I was dying and had severe malnutrition, and on the other hand I really don't know if my mum put me up for adoption, because there was no paper which the doctors that I know have had proof, either in a paper or just because they've met their mothers and they're able to say, we put you up for adoption for X, Y, and Z. So there was an understanding that he had gone abroad. But because of the lack of communication in terms of my family, they didn't know I existed as well. So no one knew I existed, and because, what can I say? I can't. I just have to deal with the information I have, and I've come to accept it that I am adopted, and I don't know who put me up for adoption, and I don't know how I ended up being adopted in so many, like, who actually signed the papers, but I don't know. But I was put up and I was adopted, and in my there's nothing I can do about it. Yeah, and there's no person I can go to and ask them. And I think I grew up with that mentality anyhow, because for a long time I didn't know if I could find my family, so I kind of accepted it. But now I realise in the bigger picture, and I think, yeah, I did see a kind of a bigger picture, even though I didn't know what the bigger picture was at that time. So I think I processed it in a certain way, and the way that I processed it, in the end of the day, is the way I should have processed it. This is what I'm saying. I've done the right thinking, I've asked the right questions, and I'm at this stage. And I don't think I can say to myself, would I prefer to have not been, or would I? Because my history is not the kind of question that would kind of allow it to be answered in such a way, because I think there's too many varying factors, and I don't have my birth mum to actually ask her. The ultimate question is, did you know I was adopted? And so therefore, I've totally kind of, kind of like, I'm adopted, okay, so what do I do about it now? Kind of thing, like, okay, so what am I going to do to make myself okay, kind of thing. And this is the kind of attitude I've had all throughout my life. What am I going to do? And I've recognised as the years gone by, okay, obviously I don't act and I don't have the same mannerisms. Obviously I don't have perhaps the same thought process of Peruvian. Even if they were brought up in this country, I might not. We won't be having the same history or the same everything, and I'm well aware of that. And so I know there's a loss. Obviously, there's a certain loss, I know, but I'm happy with where I'm at, and I'm happy with what I'm doing, how I'm going about making myself aware of having Peru in my life in so many ways. And I can never ask really the question I want to ask, really, because my mom's died, and I think I'm just kind of accepting. I've accepted that kind of thing, and
that's hard.
But it's a hard, because I don't know really. Like, it's a hard one because I'm never gonna know, and
Do you have any like theories? Like, what do you think at all?
Well,
or you just can't even fathom it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, literally, I don't know. I know that my mum gave birth to me, obviously, but I also know that when she came back home, she didn't come back home with me. This is, I know, it has been verified from an aunt that lived next door to my mum, and I actually have her videotape. Actually recorded her saying, like, I remember your mum going to the hospital. I remember her coming back in the taxi. I remember asking her, where is the baby? I remember her response, everything. And she did not come back with you. And until that day you appeared on that program, did we actually know that you existed. And because my story is so out there, I honestly didn't know that I was a secret. I mean, literally to my whole family. And unless I actually had done that TV program, they would have never seen my face. And this is such, like, goodness gracious. I mean, it's so out there. I mean, it's really, like, for me, it's something like I had to do all of those things, and I had to do it because otherwise they would have never found me. I'd never imagined that. I never imagined the history of my mum. I never imagined anything. And so I can't fathom to imagine what the situation of my mum would have been, and why. I just can't, because I think whatever I think won't be it, because it's always not another thing.
It's more like complex than that.
More like, exactly. However, if you said, well, are you happy you were adopted to London? And I say yes, definitely. I am so happy to have been adopted to London. And I think of all the countries I could have been adopted to, I mean, I would have also liked to be adopted to America, mind you. Second question, that would be my second country. But I think the question I asked myself, are you happy to be adopted to London? Is the question I asked myself. Yes, I'm happy to be adopted in London. Yes, I am. And the reason I am happy to be adopted to London is because I've been able to live my life in my own way. And what I mean by this is that I am totally different in this country because there's not enough adoptees anyhow. So whenever anyone meets me, I can guarantee 98% of the time they've never met an inter-country adoptee.
Wow.
Second of all, very rarely are they going to have met a Peruvian or a person of Peruvian origins.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
What this has meant, on the one hand, it's great to be totally unique because you've got nobody saying or assuming anything because you know that you're just going to blow them out of the water. So they may have assumptions, but you can just blow them out.
Yeah.
So this is a great thing. And also, there's not really any stereotypes for like Peruvian like people here. I mean,
really?
I've got a clue. So there isn't any notion of Peruvians in London. There isn't any like, oh yeah, they this or they that. I can just be myself.
That's really
Obviously,
nice.
on the other hand, it's like I know that in my own environment, that not really that often I'm going to meet a Peruvian because I know they're there. It's just I just don't run into them.
Right.
So that's just the hard thing, that I know that I've never really, in my own environments, don't come into contact with Peruvians. So yeah, I've just been able to form my own identity. And I have my own space.
Yeah.
And this is really good.
Yeah, that's really nice.
I feel this is really, really nice. And so London, for me, has enabled me to create an environment, an identity that I feel I can be whoever I want to be, and I don't have to be anything that I don't want to be. I am who I am, and I can explain it as well, and people are interested to hear about it.
You know, I think that's something that I was thinking about the other day too, was that I remember when I was younger, I had a friend, and she was Mexican American. I guess you would say like a very traditional family for the States, really. I mean, mom, dad, two brothers, herself. She did cheerleading, and her brothers did sports, and her dad was the head of the household, and, you know, her mom was more of like, you know, in charge of like the home duties, taking care of the house. Women had their role, men had their role. Everything was like very set into stone almost. Girls are not allowed to go out. The boys can go out. You know, the girls are not allowed to date. The boys can go and date, you know, at a certain age. They always only had Mexican food, not straying from the norm of like Mexican/Mexican American food. I think the first time she ever had like Thai food or like Indian food was with me and my mom. And so I was just thinking about that because, you know, I do, like, in a sense, like, I appreciate, like, kind of what you're saying. It's like I've been able to create my own identity, and also I see other people's identity, like, in a different way because I grew up, you know, already being different. You know, I had a single mom. She was a different race than me. Like, I was adopted. I was adopted from Peru. I was an only child, and my mom was a therapist, and I think she did a lot of groundwork to make sure, like, I was going to be raised good behaviors and things like that. So, I don't know, I just appreciate the way that she raised me because, in general, we didn't, like, let just, like, one culture dictate us, I guess you would say. And not to say that's, like, a terrible thing. Of course, it's, like, wonderful to have pride in your culture and to know your roots and to know traditions. At the same time, for me, like you've said, like, I really enjoyed being able to create my own identity based on like what I like, what I'm comfortable with, always wanting to expose myself, and like just having grown up with that. I think our culture here was like growing up with being open to different things and like not being afraid of what's outside of our norm, getting to interact with like different cultures and going to different ceremonies and different religions and things like that. That was always something that was like a part of my mom always tried to expose me to all those different things. And I think I really appreciated having that kind of like worldview at a really young age. I already knew that I was from Peru and like I was in the United States. I already knew there was more than just the US, you know, in my life. And then beyond that, like I think in general, just besides the fact my mom promoting my own culture to me, exposing me to it, you know, the artifacts and the history and books and pictures and my own personal story and journey and all the things related to that, but also then she kind of expanded it to other things. And so I got a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different just opportunity to have these diverse experiences and learn, just always learning. And it definitely wasn't easy. I think I definitely felt like different so many times, especially being a young person. Like during my childhood, it wasn't easy being different. I felt really different, but at the same time, I think it made me be the person who I am today, and I think I feel stronger than I've ever felt, honestly, and just like who I am and like what I want and where I'm at, and um, how I'm gonna be spending the rest of my adult life, and it feels really good. It feels really really good. So in that sense, I mean, I appreciate the experience that the adoption has given me. I just feel like my mind is never closed. I mean, it's always open to different things, and I just feel like for me, that's just like the only way I could live.
As you say, the great thing about being adopted is you always know that there's something out there other than what the country you live in, or maybe it's the country your origin. I don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like such a direct link, and not knowing our family makes it even more intense. Because sometimes I think about, the people who come, like for example, people who come to London from other countries, and obviously their family back home, but they know their family back home where it could be. But we don't know our family back home.
Yeah.
And we often I think, are we the same as them, kind of thing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are we the kind of people as them? But no, we're not. We're totally different because it's a big unknown out there.
Yeah.
And it's a big unknown, our family out there in Peru, for example. Was a big unknown big thing. I didn't know where it was, or I didn't know who they were. And we actually weren't obviously brought up with our own biological family, with our cultures.
Right.
So I think it's like, how do we kind of feel the effects? Because we know that we're more global, because we've had to be, we've had to understand ourselves first, and then we can understand others. But like, to what extent has that really damaged us?
I think it's different for everyone. Everybody has had their own set of circumstances to deal with and their specific stories, and it's like it ranges from like super happy stories. I think we have a friend who's had a very very happy life, it seems, at least as far as we know. Then I know other people that like have had a lot of trials and tribulations, and we've talked about that as well. I think it just is such a huge range for everyone. Like there is so much diversity in all of our stories and all of our feelings about this topic. And I think it changes at different times in your life too.
Definitely, and I think when you become more secure in one's everything, like education, job, life, where you're at in your life, you become more secure with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely, and you're able to do the things that you want to do. And sometimes I think, okay, it took me 18 years to go back to Peru, but I couldn't have gone any sooner. And we have to be really realistic with ourselves as well, and have we done as much as we can in our adoption journey? Because there's so much that one can do as one gets education and a job, etc. Then you can do what you want. There's nothing holding you back.
Right.
So I kind of had to wait till that kind of point. You know what I mean? Like, okay.
Yeah, it's true.
But there's nothing stopping me now. And I mean, as children, it's really hard to have not gone back. It's like really hard.
Yeah.
But now I'm just enjoying everything. So I'm enjoying it so much, being adopted. I mean, it sounds crazy because it was really hard being adopted. But on the other hand, now as an adult, I've enjoyed it so much being adopted.
Yeah.
It's literally given me a whole spurt of energy.
Yeah.
And I think, how can the first 18 years have not provided that? But then after 8, it does.
Yeah.
It grows all the time with adoption. I can't imagine myself. I don't know what I would have been like if I wasn't adopted. And so if I don't know what my passion, what kind of, how would I would see things, how would I see life. Yes, I am glad to have been adopted. Yes, I am glad to have been adopted to London. I'm glad to be able to go back to Peru. I'm glad to have been able to have a good understanding, appreciation of Peru as a child. No family's perfect.
No family's absolutely perfect. Not.
Absolutely not. But you've got to deal with the cards that you've been given. And my cards were limited.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm not the kind of person that kind of finished high school at 18 and went to university. I'm not the kind of, like, I didn't go in that order.
Right.
So I kind of, like, how it was, dip and dive and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's all good for it because it's all part of the journey.
Yeah.
And
Well,
but
I
I
think
the only thing I can say is like trying to communicate to a person when one's a bit like not quite there yet. Do you know what I mean? Like when you finish high school and you're kind of not quite there yet, and you see your
yeah.
friends kind of like whatever. It's like, how do you explain that to your friends, and kind of how do you explain that? That's also hard.
Yeah, oh, it is. It
It's
absolutely is.
it's because they don't understand why you're not
No.
there if you went to the same schools, or like you're not stupid, you know.
If I didn't have you, we wouldn't be having this discussion. You kind of have to like find your people along the way, like
Yeah,
find the people that
definitely.
like have your similar experiences and like you said that can relate at a deeper level, than others and let you be, like they know when to let you be. They're like, you know what, this is you. You're just doing you right now, and like that's great. And I'm not gonna say anything else about it. Just tell you to be safe or like whatever.
The
It's no,
hardest
it's,
thing was not being able to communicate. For example, like I don't know how to explain it to you,
yeah,
but but
yeah.
just uh, just
Just go with it.
go with it, kind of
Yeah.
thing. It's like it's hard to explain to you, but I'm kind of like I kind of because the thought was in my mind, but it wasn't a logical thought, but it was the heart there, and the logic was kind
Yeah.
of like a bit bit
Yeah.
muddled. But the thing was there, but it just didn't quite. So it's very hard to connect these two things because sometimes the thoughts aren't logical, and if you were to say it to the other person, they'll think of, oh, okay. But it's like, okay, when is that going to happen? It's not about when, it's just about the timing has to be right.
Yeah.
And you don't know when that timing is going to be right. It could be in 2 years, it could be in 3 years, it could be in
Right.
5 years. But you know that the time is going to be right.
Yeah.
And then how do you know the time is going to be right? Well, because I just spent whole of my life, like just, you try, because they're sometimes trying to be really helpful.
Yeah.
So I'd have that, the no concern kind of thing sometimes. It was kind of hard growing up because sometimes like that, it's like, yeah, don't worry, we'll get there. So it's just understanding others really and understanding
Definitely.
what adoption really means to individuals and how it
Hmm.
can affect one's life. And sometimes you don't, it's because you're not adopted, you kind of compare your life to their lives,
Right.
and you realize that there's so many things missing from that person, but you don't quite understand it because the automatic reaction is, so how long when were you adopted? Oh, I was adopted when I was 15. Oh, you were a baby then? Yes. But before you just say before I was a baby, can you just understand the implications of adoption just to begin with?
Right.
Because you can't just say, oh, you were just a baby, when literally it's not a matter of being 1 day or 2 years old.
Yeah.
It's the impact of adoption.
Right.
And I think there's so much, I think people don't actually understand it until you actually tell them, well, this is the way it's affected me in my school, in my academics, in my
Right.
thoughts, in my process. I don't process the things in the same way as you
In
do.
my
It took
relationships.
time. Everything,
Yeah.
everything. So unless you actually sit them down and tell them, look, I'm going to tell you
Like
something.
piece by
They,
piece.
a piece, literally, like tearing it all apart.
Yeah.
They won't really understand you. It's all part of the journey.
Without me and you here, like, we've kind of like found each other through this process. But I think in general, if we just open it up to all adoptees, like all members of the adoptee community, for me, that's made such a huge impact in my life, having other adoptees out there that like you don't have to sit them down and break it down piece by piece because for the most part like they get it and like you just have this kind of like connection. So we're gonna talk more about that next week for sure, but I think that definitely at the end of the day, like for me and it sounds like for you too, like that's been a big part of it is finding those right people that are gonna just go through the journey with you, bear with you, and like they get where you're at. They don't need to question you or push you or whatever. And it's that's just like such a positive, also another positive piece of being adopted is having that wonderful community and having like such great friends that get you and just understand you on such a different level than like the normal person or the everyday person, I guess the non-adoptee we'll call them. That was kind of a cool question, kind of a journey that we took on just in that question in and of itself. So thanks, Milagros, for bringing that topic up. And always make sure you're staying in touch with us. We want to hear your comments and feedback. Leave any comments, write us any messages, let us know what your thoughts are because we would love to hear them and continue the dialogue, continue the conversation. We'll be back next week. Like I said, we'll be talking about the adoptee community, the Peruvian adoptee community specifically, and then just the general adoptee community. So, all right, we'll see you next
Yep.
week.
Bye!
Bye. Oh, sorry. By the way, I was eating breakfast. I had some pie, so that's why I was eating.